You're feeling drained, just not yourself, and think maybe it's just aging or stress. It probably may not be. And that's what Dr. V and I are here to talk about today in episode 7 of Truth or Trend. So many people thinking that they can just go out and blast themselves with some extra testosterone and all their problems are solved.
Right.
What we want to share with you today are what you can do naturally to get that remedied. Why it's not a great idea to just throw a bunch of extra testosterone into your body, even though it's so fashionable. A lot of dangers involved in that. And we're just going to go top to bottom: herbs to use, nutrition to use, and all of that great stuff. Um,
Physical effects of the consequences.
that's exactly because I would always tell people, I said, you know what? And I don't know if I can say this legally on YouTube. You're going to feel great if you do a bunch of cocaine too, you know, but it's not healing you, right? It's going to give you energy. It's not a long-term solution. So let's talk about long-term solutions.
Trying to get our content flagged already, huh?
I'm not advocating for that. I don't know what you're
Oh,
hearing
good.
saying, but that's
Whew.
what I said. So my approach to testosterone has always been, well, let's first identify all of the likely suspects that are missing from the chemistry set for your body to make it in the first place, right? And I
Right.
think you and I talk a lot about vitamin D, but people don't realize that you're going to have a really hard time making testosterone if you don't have adequate vitamin D. I
Right.
think the other biggest nutrients that are missing that people don't realize is heavily dependent, or testosterone is heavily dependent on, is zinc, right? That's another really big one. So I think that we need to create this list of nutrients that people need to go through. And it's a pretty long list, right, of all the things that you need to
Right.
do that.
Right.
Cholesterol being one of the most important things for that. People don't realize that they can't make testosterone without cholesterol or
Right.
protein, right? So if you have low testosterone, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is you should first take it as a hint that
Right.
your body is starving in some way, possibly, right? There's something missing.
Right. Right.
And so let's
And
talk,
look at cholesterol, look upstream, right? Is cholesterol high or low?
right?
Cholesterol's low if it's being blocked. Is that why their testosterone's low? Or if testosterone's low and cholesterol's high, then right, then the body's compensating, trying to
Yeah,
trying to compensate for that deficiency. Mm.
exactly. And so how do we, first of all, I guess before we get into that, I mean, we could give an
Yeah.
example list. I mean, what are some of the other things that you see that are commonly low in people that would be needed for testosterone other than cholesterol, zinc, vitamin D?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it's usually testosterone converting to estrogen, right?
Hmm.
So that's
Yes.
the most common problem there is their testosterone's being converted, making them cry at chick flicks and end up with, man boobs and Buddha belly and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so,
Well, and that's the danger that we're talking about, right? That's why you don't want
right,
to just dump a bunch of testosterone because I don't think people realize testosterone turns into one of two things. Like there's no way out of that, right? It doesn't just
right.
hang out and be testosterone for life.
Make you inspired, buffed, and motivated.
Right. Well, and the most common way that it converts is into estrogen, right? And that's what
Mhm.
you're saying is, and I think a lot of times people are estrogen dominant, so it is suppressing your body's ability to make more testosterone because it's saying, "Hey, slow this down. This is bad, right? This will
Mhm.
give you prostate cancer or breast cancer or make you fat or weepy, like you just said."
Right, right.
So, what are some of the things that somebody might notice in themselves that is an indication that they're kind of headed in that direction, low T or high estrogen?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So, the muscle associated with both testosterone and estrogen, the muscle is that glute medius muscle. So that's going to be hip pain. And so if that's chronically weak, then that's going to lead to degeneration of the hip. So think of the person that's needing a hip replacement or, has osteoarthritis in that hip. That
Yeah.
is chronic long-term hormonal imbalance that is taking place. I see that a lot. We'll talk about bitemporal headaches is typically estrogen metabolism consideration. I've had several, runners, for example, that had hormone replacement IUDs, not hormone replacement, but IUDs with like Marina that has a drip hormones in it, and
Yeah.
then they've got weakness in that glute medius muscle, and it compromises their ability to run and perform and that sort of thing.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's that glute medius weakness that takes place with estrogen. It's the bitemporal headache. Then physically, there's an acupuncture point right on the outside of the elbow, the
Oh, that.
hormone tonification point right on the outside. If we're on YouTube, it's going to be right over. If anatomically, it's over the radial head where that bone rotates around on the elbow there, that's going to, so tennis elbow, right?
Right. So
Lateral
soreness.
epicondylitis.
Yeah.
Right. So that is a hormone problem, and that is typically induced by blood sugar considerations.
Mm.
So, I mean, in the female, that's estrogen induced, high estrogen induced from chronic um, insulin
Mm.
signaling, right? And so
Right.
then they get estrogen dominant. And in the male, that's testosterone converting to estrogen because they've got too much insulin, too much carbohydrate going on. So if a person gets testosterone, guy gets testosterone pellets, right? And
Mhm.
then and then eats donuts and ho-hos and then wonders why they're gaining weight, right? And not
Right.
not getting, muscular and buffed and motivated. There's a signal. So for men, most of the time in my world, it's a carbohydrate problem that causes their testosterone to be low.
Like
So
overconsumption of carbohydrates, just
too
full
much
on.
too much insulin
Yeah.
ultimately
Yeah.
causes testosterone in the male. Insulin causes testosterone to convert to estrogen. In the female, insulin causes estrogen to convert to testosterone. So
Oh,
then the
wow.
female is going to get acne. She's going to get facial hair,
Right. Right.
look like you. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the inverse, it makes women manly, makes men, female, feminine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at insulin issues for sure. When blood sugar is out of whack, we're going to get the tricep and the left, which sets up double crush syndrome. So
What's that? Double
so
crossing.
that's double crush syndrome where they have tenderness in like the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist, double or triple crush. That's where the nerves are getting compressed all down that brachial plexus, and that is always a blood sugar problem. So people that are getting carpal tunnel surgery,
Yeah.
and then it comes back 5 years later, or it shows up in the other wrist later. It's because I'm a checker at the grocery store, that sort of stuff. That is a blood sugar problem. Waking up
Mm.
with numb hands. Those are signs, physical signs that blood sugar, that the body's not using insulin effectively, and so we need to stabilize that. And so further symptoms of that is men that cry at chick flicks, women that have facial hair. So
Right.
those are all latent signs of chronic um, insulin insensitivity and yo-yoing. A1C is going to show up in labs. Hemoglobin A1C is going to show up higher in labs because the blood sugar is yo-yo and all. A1C is a 3-month number. So if that's high, then the blood sugar has been yo-yoing all over, for the last 3 months.
Oh man. So if you're a guy and you're in your 40s and you're in a bad habit of eating too many carbs, right? You eat cereal
Right,
for breakfast or whatever, you're just in this habit, and you're
right,
convinced to go to a doctor to just get testosterone injections, right? You're going to feel great short term.
right,
But what is the underlying like boiling problem that's going to explode at some point, right? It's going to be
right,
possibly diabetes. It could be
right,
all of these things because it's a blood sugar thing that's causing this low T, and just taking that testosterone is not doing anything to help
right,
correct this massive juggernaut of a problem that's coming, right? So
right, right.
what kind of advice do you give to people, I mean, to help move them away from that overcarb consumption, to get that insulin under control so that testosterone can ultimately get back to normal?
Right, right. So we might need herbs to break the cycle, right? Gymnema is a good one to reduce those carb sugar cravings. We may need to kill yeast because when we eat the sugar, it feeds yeast and yeast wants to be fed, so it creates sugar cravings. So that perpetuates the cycle. That'll manifest as neck pain, neck tension. There's a physical manifestation where the when the valve sticks open in the ileocecal valve or the valve of Houston in the colon, those tend to stick open to get the yeast out because the body doesn't want that fermenting and creating that, bloating like a loaf of bread in your in your gut. So those valves stick open and that causes the neck extensor muscles to turn off. And so that's that chronic neck pain. Oops, I just ate sugar, now my neck hurts.
Mm.
That's yeast being fed. So that's another physical symptom of too much carbohydrate then feeding yeast. So we may need to kill the yeast to curb those carb sugar cravings. We may need to stabilize the insulin response, with herbs like gymnema or minerals like vanadium and chromium. Chromium is really good to resensitize insulin receptors so that they're not getting the dips that then create carb sugar cravings. Carb sugar cravings happen when the blood sugar dips below the line, right? Below the that's hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. That's when we like give me anything, and discipline goes out the window because
Right.
it's the brain saying I need food, I need nutrition now because it's only energy. The brain is the only organ in the body that cannot convert up protein or fat or any of that. And so its only energy source is glucose. So when it dips, it's all mental and the hangries, right? What are the
Yeah.
symptoms of the hangries?
Right.
And we get violent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right? Mhm.
Yeah, I think this is so important because I do think that that's where people they compartmentalize things. They think low T is just a problem with not being too old and not making enough testosterone. They have
Right.
no idea that carb consumption, that sugar consumption is what's doing that to them ultimately. And then they go
Ultimately.
far, far down that path and they just need something to rip them out of that. And I think
Right.
it's important when you're trying to help people to stop eating carbs and sugars to give them something that they can eat versus telling them that they just can't eat these things, right? If you just give them a list of things
Right.
they can't eat, that kind of shuts them down, right? Then they're kind of stuck going, well, I can't
Totally.
eat anything, right? You have
Right.
to give them some choices. And so, what are some good foods are that you're guiding people towards when you're trying to help them eat less
Yeah,
carbs?
great. And so, I mean, Diadamo, even a lot of people talk about when you get carb sugar cravings, eat protein,
Hmm.
break the cycle, right? Because protein and good fat are going to stabilize carb sugar cravings. The other thing is often it starts with, with the blood type, from a blood type diet perspective, a lot of the side effects of quote, avoid foods for like for me, if I eat chicken as a B blood type, if I eat chicken or if I eat tomatoes, if I did, I used to, when I did, I would have carb sugar cravings. I would crave dessert
Uh,
or that sort of thing
uh,
afterwards. And so that was a lot of what really sold me out on the blood type, for example, because I
yeah,
realized some of the beans I eat, if I eat them, I'm asleep, I'm craving carbs, after, and I've been sugar free for decades. I mean,
yeah,
literally
yeah.
since I was 14 years old. And
Wow.
so, that really confirmed the whole blood type lectin reaction
Yeah,
because the lectins typically are either signaling molecules for the immune system or for insulin
right.
stability. So
Yeah.
when we eat avoids, that's going to create carb sugar cravings. So a lot of times it starts with recognizing what those food triggers are. I tell my patients use the app, the blood type diet app, figure out I can't stay awake at my desk. What did I just eat? Oops, I ate potatoes, or I ate.
Right.
I mean, for A and O blood types, dairy often is going to trigger carb sugar cravings,
Yeah. So
and
ice cream is
incident.
like a big punch in the face.
Yeah,
People like that.
big time. And then yeah, then there'll be guys will be crying at chick flicks. Sleep will be disrupted. I mean,
Right.
incidentally, we're talking about blood sugar. One of my favorite symptoms. I tell people, how long can you stay asleep? The shorter that duration of the sleep cycle, the more unstable blood sugar is,
Right.
because what's happening is blood sugar is dipping too much at night.
Right. Right. So those people
So,
who keep waking up two, three times a night, they think it's just because they have to go to the bathroom, but it's going to be a
mhm.
huge, probably because of the sugar is creating that problem, even for them to have to get and go to the bathroom. So
Right. That's
yeah.
yeah. Blood sugar's dipping too low, and it's a crisis for the brain.
Right.
So that so the brain's basically saying, "Feed me," and then they wake up, "Oh, I have to pee." Right.
So are you suggesting people kind of explore a keto diet then a lot when it comes to something like that?
Keto will help stabilize blood sugar. Yeah. Fasting helps resensitize insulin receptors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately,
18 hours, right? At least an 18-hour fast once or
yeah,
twice.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so
Okay.
that's going to help resensitize. We need to make sure adrenals are healthy,
Mhm.
because during a fast, the adrenals need to help kind of digest the body, if you will, or stimulate the
Right.
detoxification.
Yeah.
But that also helps resensitize insulin receptors. So there's that balance in life ultimately.
Yeah.
Um, Keeping the sugar out, taking the supplements, eating, yeah, protein and fat. Will protein and fat have a much more stable insulin response, whereas carb sugars are, the simpler the carb is, the more steep and the bigger the dip is going to be on insulin,
Yeah.
on glucose. Mhm.
Okay. Well, and of course, this isn't everything that's driving low T, right? But it's probably one of the most common and biggest pieces out there, right? This whole
Right,
sugar thing. I mean, of course, there's endocrine disruptors. There's these chemicals that are being sprayed on things that are
for
also
sure.
contributing.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about some of the nutrients that people are probably missing to make it, but like you said, you think it's converting into estrogen. So what are a lot of
Right.
people are looking to herbs, right? Because there's
Mhm,
there's all
mhm,
these commercials now, I don't know if you've seen
mhm.
this one. He goes, yeah, you take it, man, and she's gonna like it too, right? And it's just a bunch of herbs. So people, guys are looking for things like that to increase their
Sure.
testosterone through herbs. So let's explore and talk about some of those, right? Let's talk about some
Mhm.
of the mechanisms because yesterday when I was teaching in Connecticut, we had a great section and conversation. And one of the questions that came up is, well, what about Tongkat Ali, right? Can we just take Tongkat Ali and that'll
Mm-hmm.
increase testosterone?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really important for people to understand that, yeah, it can. If you have a lot of bound testosterone, right? There's something called sex hormone binding globulin
Mm-hmm.
that will stop you from being able to experience free testosterone, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that Tongkat Ali does is it releases that bound testosterone so that you get the free stuff. But my
Right.
question for everybody, and just using that, is that now that you've released it, it's still going to turn into estrogen if you don't slow that down. And if
Mm-hmm.
you clear the estrogen at the end of the day, it's going to again go back and signal to your brain to slow down testosterone production, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
increase
Mm-hmm.
sex hormone binding globulin. So
Mm-hmm.
you had another mechanism with Tongkat Ali that you said was interesting, though, beyond that.
Yeah, so well, from the testosterone cycle, testosterone is the signaling one. Huberman talks about this, but Andrew Huberman talks about testosterone being a dopamine signaling molecule. So dopamine is our reward center, right? So dopamine gives us that drive to go chase, to conquer, to make a living, to be
Yeah.
satisfied. I mean, every commercial is aimed at stimulating dopamine release in the brain. Gaming. That's why people get, addicted to playing, video games and things because all the killing of people and the sexy girls on the games and all that sort of stuff is stimulating dopamine release in the brain. And that's our brain saying, life is good. It's all okay, or cocaine,
Right. Exactly.
or most of the
Right.
recreational drugs are aimed at giving that ecstasy, right? Is a great example of what, that dopamine signaling. So testosterone gives us that. And so, I mean, I'm a podium chasing athlete, and so,
Right.
so I like the herbs like, Tongkat Ali and Tribulus we're going to talk about next. In the benefit that, I mean, for me, I noticed that I'm not willing to let somebody pass me on the bike when I'm taking things like Tribulus or Tongkat, especially Tribulus in this case, because of that dopamine signaling, the testosterone production that goes along with that. Then I race harder, I perform better. So, but I do need to modulate it because I don't want to get too crazy there and
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
chasing that, all day long, right?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, and I want to hear more about Tribulus because I've got a doctor that I've been working with for a very long time, and he's in his 70s, and he's always had robust testosterone because he's done everything naturally, right? He's always looked at his nutrition. He's applied some good herbs, but he would tell me, he goes, you know what? I tried that Tribulus, and Dustin, I got too aggressive. The things were starting to make me irritated and angry, and that's a sign that you maybe have a little too much testosterone, right?
Right,
So
right.
talk about Tribulus a little bit and when you're using it, because you're just saying that you know the difference on a race day when you take it versus you don't, right?
Right, right. So I took us down the other. I took it. I fast forwarded. Sorry, we hadn't
Oh,
really finished talking about Tonkat Alley,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, go
So,
ahead.
so Tonkat Alley is beautiful. That's a newer in our world, a little bit newer, herb. But it has actually, when I was looking at the research, more of the research actually confirms that it does have, testosterone boosting, and as you said, that sex hormone binding globulin. It's a great thing. We don't want that SBH, binding up our hormones and
Right.
preventing us from getting the benefit of them. So Tonkat Ali is really good for that. Physically, symptomatically, I do feel like it has some growth hormone properties to it too. So
Mm,
from an athletic perspective, from a male perspective, I tend to take Tonkat Ali after an event, more as a recovery herb actually. And so
interesting.
I pulled up some, it came up on ChatGPT that there's some indication it may have some growth hormone production potential, but no studies at this point have overtly confirmed that. I don't get the boost that like I'm chasing for the title with Tonkat Ali that I do with Tribulus.
Mm.
Tribulus seems to be more of a drive motivation kind of an herb for me.
So
And so I
pre-work,
will take
you do it.
pre-workout. Yeah. So I
Interesting.
will take
Okay.
that, potentially even for the week leading up to the race. I will take it.
Okay.
But we kind of alluded to my story of, I have to be careful about getting, over aggressive, the wandering eyes, I
Right.
call it if I take too much. So
Okay.
I'd like to think maybe my studying in my personal life and, reading the Bible more is helping with that.
Okay.
Trying to keep it
Maintaining
keep it managed and
testosterone,
maintained.
right? Use it for good. Use your powers
That's
for good,
right.
Dr. V. So I've
Yeah,
been
so
at coming after I come from the gym, I come straight to the office and I have a whole little routine. And Tongkat Ali is what I've been taking after my workout. So I'm happy to know that that's probably better. I'm doing it post workout.
Uh-huh.
And dosing, what are you doing for dosing on the Tongkat Ali?
I'm a low, you and I vary on this. I tend to be, 1 to 2 typically is enough for me.
1 to 2 of
It's
Medi Herbs Tongkat Ali?
of Medi Herbs Tongkat Ali, and then same deal, 1 to 2 on the Tribulus.
Yeah, and
So
Medi Herbs Tongkat Ali is pretty potent, right? You've got 100 to 1 extract in there.
yeah, mhm.
So you could probably get away with just one of those, really, for
Yeah.
most people.
I typically, I guess I'm a dopamine junkie too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started I was doing one a day for years, but recently I've been getting a little bit more ambitious and
Okay.
taking 2 a day.
Why not?
Maybe,
Why not?
maybe age is starting to catch up. Don't tell anybody.
Maybe you're pushing yourself a little outside of what nature says you should do.
Right.
That's another story. Um,
That's the status
okay.
of my life.
So let's talk
So
about Tribulus, because Tribulus, now that's the other thing. Now I want to talk about the sourcing, right? There's so many products out there that throw garbage Tribulus into things, and that
big
is
time. It's a very popular herb.
so people will try it and it won't work. It could be a million things, right? They don't have the nutrition to support it. They're not taking it at the right time. They're not taking enough, or they're probably most likely not taking a good quality one. And that's one thing I did learn from MediHerb is that they have to source it from a very specific part of the world. Otherwise it doesn't,
Bulgaria.
yeah, the active pieces of it. And so it
hmm
becomes a little more expensive, but this is a 30 to 1 extract.
hmm
And they still say that you should be taking one of these per 50 pounds of body weight daily
Yeah.
to get that effect. Again, tell me about your experience with it. Now I'm going to start taking this pre-workout because I was taking it after I got to my office after the workout. Now
Yeah.
I'm taking it on my way to the workout and see how
All
that
right.
goes. Yeah.
Put it in your car, huh?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I kind of let the cat out of the bag. I mean, I feel more driven, race wise. Yeah,
Yep.
if I hadn't been taking it, if my testosterone's starting to flounder a bit, then
Mm.
it's like, I'm tired. I've been working hard, and I'll let people pass me, and then it's okay. I'm like, who cares? It's just a ribbon,
Yeah.
But when I'm on Tribulus, that's not okay, and I'll chase him down, and I'll fight for the podium kind of thing. So
Okay.
that's kind of my personal experience with it. I like that drive. I like that feeling. I like having muscle tissue. I
Yeah.
like dopamine. Dopamine's that happy, drive
Yep.
neurotransmitter. So dopamine's also the molecule of creativity, right? And so, I
Yeah.
mean, pathologic dopamine is schizophrenia. We certainly don't want to be there, or
Right.
below that's going to be those crazy vivid dreams. So those are signs that maybe we're getting a little too carried away on the dopamine.
Too
But
much dopamine? Yeah, sure.
yeah, when it's too low, when dopamine's too low, then we're apathetic, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Nothing
deep
except
depression, really, right? And
absolutely.
so, I mean, God gave us that dopamine for a reason.
Right.
Use it for good.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and not to backtrack too much, but when you were talking about sex hormone binding globulin, God gave us that for a reason too, right? So I want us to be
totally.
reminded that if we do have too much sex hormone binding globulin, we're always just trying to reach to Tongkat Ali to rip that open. We have to understand that the body was making that for a reason, right? So
Yeah.
something needs to be balanced elsewhere in the endocrine system. Maybe it's insulin, maybe it's excess estrogen, maybe it's something, you know what I mean? But we got to
Right.
still use that as information to know that something isn't quite right if it's too much. I'm just
hmm
and it's not
Right,
just
right,
because we're
right.
getting too old, right? Because
Right.
yeah, I'm not accepting that argument.
So backing up a smidge, I left out the adductor muscles. Is typically
Hmm.
the groin muscles. Those are associated with testosterone, with prostate or uterus in the female, prostate in the male, and
Yeah.
so the groin muscles that pull that people might feel trying to stretch or do activities. That's another sign that the testosterone or prostate is compromised.
Hmm.
And so if we're talking about prostate, certainly we don't want to overdrive that and end up with prostate cancer, right?
Right,
But
right,
we
right.
should take it back to, the easy, elephant in the room is zinc, right? And
Yeah.
so zinc deficiency is the most common cause of prostate hypertrophy, and that's the person that can't quite get the guy that can't get all their pee out because that prostate's enlarged all around the ureter. The ureter goes right through that prostate. When that gets enlarged, then we can't get it. We can't make bubbles when we pee,
Right,
or
right.
we can't write our name in the snow and dot our I's anymore. So zinc is the best. I mean,
You get a
zinc
lot of snow
deficiency
there in
there.
Southern California that
We
you out there.
yeah, we could drive a bit for that. So I
Okay.
haven't tested that lately, no. And so, I mean, incidentally, I mean, it's kind of awkward, but I mean, men should be waking up with a flagpole or a kickstand, right? When
Right,
testosterone is good. So there's another sign that, if you're not waking up with that, then testosterone is likely low. You're also probably having some of those low symptoms.
right. Even for
Again,
women too, I remind not that they wake up with an erection, but
with
that when I'm asking women, to try to determine whether their testosterone is normal or not, it's the same question. Do you notice when an athletic, good-looking man walks by, right? Does it even
right.
register on your radar? Because if it's not at all, you probably are a little low on testosterone. And women
Hmm.
need
Hmm.
testosterone too. I
They
mean,
do.
yeah.
They do. And husbands wants their wives to have testosterone.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Keep their libido up, right? I mean, how often do we have couples in the office and, husbands, doing the elbow nudge, hey, see if you can boost that up for her.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Mhm.
Exactly. So
So
you said you
good
had some
source.
research you wanted to share with us though
Well,
before.
a good source of zinc is pumpkin
Oh,
seeds,
oh yeah,
right?
definitely. Yes.
Pumpkin seeds are really good for the prostate, for male hormones, female hormones. So a good, easy snack to include.
Yeah.
So,
Make sure
so
they're
for
they're
sure,
organic though, organic pumpkin seeds to make sure that there's enough zinc in them, right, as a source.
100% right.
Pecans are a great source of zinc as well.
Hmm.
Of course, oysters. Can't go wrong with oysters.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I had a couple research papers. I mean, mostly what I came up with. I don't know if you want to share those, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Please go ahead and share.
let's see. Do
Oh,
you
do I
have,
need to let
let
you
me
share your screen?
share,
Do I have to give you some
share, send
control?
request.
Okay, there you go. You are allowed. Do it. Oh, one last thing before you jump into that. I did want to say
Yep, yep.
one thing that keeps repeating, and most of the doctors were shocked to remember this, is they didn't even know that standard process is a product called Fen-gre,
Oh
which is
yeah,
basically
share that.
fenugreek. And
Uh-huh.
fenugreek, what's beautiful about this or testosterone that people don't realize is that it inhibits that enzyme, that aromatase enzyme that converts testosterone into estrogen. So whether you're
Right.
taking exogenous estrogen or testosterone or you're just trying to keep it high, this is really important to slow down that enzyme that converts it. I mean, zinc and cruciferous vegetables also play into that, but it also inhibits the conversion, which a lot of men actually run into, where it converts down to DHT, right? The dihydrotestosterone, which is not great either. Is
Right,
that Robert
right.
Sapolsky? That looks like Robbie.
There, so he was interviewed on Andrew White
Oh, okay.
Huberman, and that's where this came from. He was the one that was talking about dopamine and Huberman was talking about dopamine as a signaling molecule and testosterone stimulating that.
Mm.
The key is testosterone and dopamine don't create goals and behaviors; they stimulate action potential to do it. So that's what I kind of pulled up as I was going through preparing for some of this. Dopamine are yeah, we talked about that. So yeah. Sidebar
Well,
though,
this is
you
the
just
guy
talked
who
to
wrote Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, right? This guy knows about adrenals.
nice.
Robert Sapolsky, I mean, he's a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient, and he's a professor of biology at Stanford.
He
And
looks like a
so,
professor, huh?
yeah, 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 he's a very interesting guy. Very interesting guy.
For
Um,
sure.
Actually, he came up in my lecture yesterday on the adrenals and thyroid connection because he has so much research on that. So I'm glad that he's on there talking about.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. So that was a good one. Backtracking a bit on the Fen-gre, I'd be curious if Fen-gre has any oxytocin benefits,
Hmm.
since it's also stimulates milk production, right?
Oh yeah.
That'd
Okay.
be kind of interesting thing to maybe that's something else to dig into for fact or fiction.
Right. Right. Well, I just think it's an underutilized, beautiful little product that people could be getting
Yeah.
a lot of benefits from.
Well, and I mean, it is the primary nutrient in breast milk production supplements, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, likely because there's a huge testosterone oxytocin connection too, for
For
sure.
sure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So what do you
Um,
got for us here?
so yeah, I mean, mainly this is just again
Tongkat Ali.
sports.
Okay.
Yeah, on Tongkat Ali, but basically saying that it increased improvements were found in Tongkat Ali for tension, for anger, it reduced
Oh
anger,
wow.
which is kind of interesting considering that
Yeah.
we're talking about the
Testosterone.
Tribulus and the
Yeah.
testosterone issues, and
Mhm.
then confusion, right? having proper signaling molecules in our brain is going to reduce confusion. And the stress hormone profile, we talked about cortisol and testosterone. The body's going to steal from cortisol. No, sorry, it's backwards. It's going to steal from testosterone and progesterone to make cortisol.
Right.
So if we're stress junkies, that also is going to potentially create low progesterone or less low testosterone and create some of
Sure.
those unmotivated symptoms. The body's going to through the HPA axis kind of shut us down when we're overdriving and leading to crash and burn, right? So if we can balance that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, modulate stress, that also is going to help us preserve our testosterone and stay manly and motivated and buff to be the person that that you were talking about when the guy walks by that's
Right.
handsome and fit, right?
Right. Right. Right.
We
Well,
want to
that's
be that
fascinating.
guy. Mhm.
I would have
Yeah,
never thought of Tongkat Ali to reduce anger, right? That's such an important
seriously.
little marker, hasn't it?
Seems backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
When we think of the benefits of testosterone.
Yeah.
So reduce cortisol exposure and increase testosterone status.
Wow.
And so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there about studies that came up directly relating testosterone status with the Tongkat Ali. I was kind of int surprised that they talked more that Tribulus, I mean, it seems like it's much more studied than TA, Tongkat Ali, yet there was less overt proof that it directly relates, even though,
Wow.
Carrie Bowen talks about it stimulating luteinizing hormone as a precursor to testosterone and all that stuff. I mean, there's pretty
Hmm.
good studies that way. This
Yeah.
is another one for TA, Tongkat Ali. Numerous preclinical animal studies have demonstrated improved sex drive, balanced hormonal profiles, enhanced physical function. Human supplementation trials show clear indication of reduced fatigue, heightened energy and mood, improved stress resilience, and greater sense of well-being. So again, I mean, it helps us be more human, right? Be more productive human beings.
Yeah.
So yeah, so good stuff there. And then this I think was Tribulus. No, still TA.
So there's multiple functions to it. It's not just
Yeah, right.
affecting one little aspect of it, which is really cool to see.
Right. And so here again, this overtly measuring testosterone production and showing the benefits, that was good. There was, particular product they were trying to pitch.
Right.
Um, AI,
Yeah.
ChatGPT comes up, right? May
Uh-huh.
increase total testosterone levels,
Okay. May
improve physical
modify it.
function,
Yeah.
right? And so, speaking of enhanced sperm quality, forgot to talk about that
Oh
from a
yeah.
fertility perspective, right? I mean, this is the gold Tribulus,
Used
going
to be the
back the
gold
other way,
standard for that. Yeah.
is really the
Helping with
gold
the
standard.
motility.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so my typical protocol clinically for that, we're going to talk a little bit more about this over in a couple of weeks, I believe. But my typical protocol is fix the guy, fix the girl, as far as making sure their gonads are all, their male and female hormones are working properly, the uterus, the adrenals, and the thyroid. And then add Tribulus. Hey, husband and wife each take, one Tribulus, makes better sperm quality, better motility for the men, helps women have stronger, healthier ovulation. So, I mean, I put them on Tribulus. Uh, if they're anxious, we're ready to go, and then I
Yeah.
may start them at the same time. But typically, I try to fix the underlying issues and then add Tribulus if we're still a little stalled out on a fertility front. So,
Wow.
big benefit on sperm quality and production with the Tribulus. Mhm.
Now, somebody might be reading all this and think that only men, and then mostly this has been applied to men, right?
Sure.
The research in
Right.
Natalie, but there really is benefit for women to be able to take this as well, right? I mean, for all
100%. Yeah. And so, I mean, typically the joke, that I seem to hear is that, the men want the women to take it because it boosts testosterone, boosts
right.
drive, it
Reduces
enhances
anger.
libido, right? It enhances libido for the females. But yeah, there's benefit. Again, it raises LH, which makes a good, healthier ovulation, which
Mm.
is going to, ultimately balance estrogen and so on for the women as well. I was interested to find, I think this was Tribulus again. Going way back up here, sorry. Tribulus. But had nitric oxide benefits. Yeah, this is Tribulus, showed anti-inflammatory and nitric oxide benefits. So that was highlighted right here. TT is Tribulus terrestris is an inhibition of COX-2, right? That's what aspirin tries to do, right?
Right,
A
right,
lot of those. So it could increase nitric oxide production, which means getting better blood flow to the tissues. I think erection, that sort of stuff.
right,
But I mean that's that part. But that means, performance, right? We want to modulate
right.
nitric oxide to run faster, to cycle hard, to push more weight, that sort of stuff. It's a
Well, it's interesting
nitric
because
oxide.
one doctor always put it to me this way when she was lecturing. She says, "Look, for men, is the desire there, but the function is not there, right? Or is the function there, but the desire isn't there?" And she would say that
Right.
would be the difference between it's testosterone that we need or it's nitric oxide that we need. And this is
100%.
cool that this is affecting both, right?
Right.
So, okay.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
for
So, and
ED
and
or
that is very
erectile
true.
dysfunction, this would probably be a really good. You should have
Good
this
herb.
checklist of things to go through.
Right. And so you bring up a good point. So, when women ask me, can you help my husband's, issues? Yeah. So yeah, is it a desire concern or is it a performance concern?
Right.
If they're not able to fulfill, sorry, but sometimes there's some emotional, issues. She's
Sure.
offended him and he,
Sure. Oh
he's,
yeah.
that sort of stuff. So we have to do some emotional work, potentially your psyche or neuroemotional technique or things like that to help clear out some of that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, nitric oxide issues are an indication or an potential early indication that there's cardiovascular risk. So my concern is, if he's not performing, we need to make sure he's not going to have a heart attack in the
Right.
process, right? Because nitric
Right.
oxide, low eNOS, nitric oxide synthase can create that constriction of the vessels, and then they end up with a heart
Although that's the
attack.
way that a lot of guys say they want to go, right?
For sure.
Terrible
Right.
joke. Sorry. But yeah, we should probably keep
So
their heart
nitric
alive,
oxide.
right? Long enough
Right.
to do this more and
100%.
more. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So again, anyway, I just thought this was interesting. Talking about the anti-inflammatory, and there was also some studies that talked about nitric oxide, or excuse me, Tribulus, and its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant benefits as well. So preventing the oxidation, which is aging, and recovery from exercise and so on. So
Okay. Cool.
that's some of the stuff I had. I think that was the extent of it.
Okay.
Let's see, primary objectives. Tribulus was, again, antioxidant status, antioxidant capacity. So, and then glutathione, even they talked about its effect on glutathione peroxidase. So that's, again, recovery, keeping the immune system strong. So huge, huge benefits all over the place.
So you also mentioned, okay, so we've hit Tribulus, we've hit Tongkat Ali quite hard. But you mentioned something about crazy monkey brain or something like that. What was this?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. How do I get out of my screen sharing here?
Shilajit? It should be right at the top where it says stop sharing.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
what was
yeah.
it Shilajit or what was which one was it?
Shilajit, yeah, yeah,
Shilajit.
yeah. So
Okay.
Shilajit is a good source of fulvic acid and humic acid.
Okay.
Shilajit spelled Shilgit.
Okay.
Shilajit is ultimately it's fulvic and humic acid. The way this was developed was what are those anthropologists were studying monkeys in the Amazon, and they're like, man, those monkeys are horny. Look at them running around, chasing each other around, and so they're like, what are they eating? And they realized that these monkeys were going down to the rainforest bottom, all that decaying plant material on the bottom of the rainforest,
Okay.
and they're mowing on this, and
Huh.
so then they studied it, found that it had this fulvic and humic acid, which is a combination of about 84 different minerals that really help as precursors to testosterone.
Okay.
But kind of the fun thing with this fulvic and humic acid is it's the only thing I've heard or know of that can actually morph. If you're minerally deficient, it can actually, these minerals can like morph and be molybdenum if you need it, or morph to zinc. So it's
Oh,
it's kind
wow.
of almost amphoteric that way. And you know, what's the word that anyway, alien like,
Oh,
shift to create to help modulate deficiencies of other minerals that you may be short in. So
wow.
it's another one that's kind of that hailed as an Ayurvedic, kind of gold standard herb that everybody should have. I mean,
Okay.
there's some companies that are just going nuts on it.
Wow.
Anyway, that is definitely shown to be a precursor, a help to boost testosterone production as well.
Do you have a source that you've been using on that? Because I have no source for that at all, and I haven't read
Yeah, I mean,
any.
there's some companies I use. I mean, it's a local Pristine Hydro makes a Shilajit capsule supplement that I use.
Okay.
It's kind of a local thing they can ship, but they're not even really set up for wholesale. I
Okay.
have to do a backdoor deal with them to wholesale it.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah, some of the other companies. Uh, Cellcore, I mean, I've seen them, a lot of podcasts with them talking about they have some good liquid products that way as well. It does kind of taste like dirt. I put it in
Okay.
my smoothies as well,
Okay.
just to kind of as that added bonus. And I take it as capsules as well,
Interesting.
both.
So now,
Mhm.
as you're talking about this, it's making me think. If you were to if you were to design, one product that would be helpful, like these guys are doing on these TV shows, you would
Mhm.
definitely want that in there. Then you would want that for
Yeah,
probably
right.
some Tongkat Ali, maybe some Tribulus.
Yeah,
From a mushroom standpoint, I would be looking at cordyceps. I think there's
nice.
a lot to cordyceps, uh,
Hmm.
for sure.
Does cordyceps have any known dopamine benefits? Do we know?
That's a good question. I should
Yeah,
probably learn more about that.
yeah.
I just know about their testosterone production. So
Well, if it's stimulating testosterone, it's a signaling molecule. Now we know it's a signaling molecule for dopamine.
yeah, yeah,
So, right?
yeah. Yes, it does
Wow,
influence the dopaminergic system. So, yeah, that would be
fun.
that would be a yes for
There
cordyceps.
we go. Cordyceps is a happy mushroom.
All right. So to wrap this all up,
Mm,
did you hit all the things that you wanted to talk about when it comes to this?
beautiful. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then some.
Okay, cool. I think, yeah, I think it is important to have these herbs available to people
Mm,
when they're trying to get this balance. It's definitely going to
hmm
help.
hmm
It's not
hmm
going to help as much if you don't have the chemistry in there in the first place, though. In my opinion, you got to make sure you're
Right.
getting the vitamin
Zinc.
D, zinc, and yeah, all those essential nutrients. And then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle if you're overeating carbs, right? If you're over consuming sugar, if you're doing
Hmm.
all of that for that, you're not going to get the same result. So
Right.
I think the takeaways today are reduce your carbs, um,
Right.
right? Make sure you got the nutrients, use some of these herbs, and just be careful, not to get into estrogen dominance because that's really bad news, right?
Really bad news. And physical signs and symptoms. Adductor, the groin muscles can get weak and compromised when the prostate or testosterone or progesterone are not functioning, or uterus for females. The glute medius is that muscle on the top, below the belt, kind of on the top of the glute muscles. That muscle will get weak and compromised, ultimately leading to degeneration of the hip when there's chronic hormone imbalances. We talked about symptoms. We talked a lot and had some fun with the symptoms of low testosterone, right? Is motivation, drive, libido, muscle maintenance. So those are all some of the signs and symptoms that may be there if a person is low in testosterone or progesterone. Well,
Yeah,
testosterone in this case. Mm.
cool. Well, awesome. Thanks for
Mm.
all of that. I mean, I always learn something when we're doing this. So that's
So
kind of why we
fun.
do this, right? If nobody else is watching, at least we're learning
Right,
to
right.
be better.
And it
Um,
stimulates us to keep learning, right?
that's right. So I have a lot of people that when I'm teaching or I'm running into on the street or something, and they know that we do this and they do watch it, they'll say, "Oh, can you do one about this or do one about that?" I really want to ask you if you're watching to type it below, right? Because I get
Right.
a lot of these requests, and I want to make sure that we got a running list of topics that we're going to be going through over we've got like what a year's worth of topics now.
Mhm.
And we're
Right.
gonna have some other guests coming on. We're gonna try to do every other week with a new guest going forward. But next week we're not decided yet what we're gonna do, but
Okay.
we'll let you know soon what that's gonna be, and hopefully we'll answer
Right.
questions. But make sure you are sharing this with people and leaving us comments so we know what answers you want us to talk about. If we're getting too deep into certain things or we're not clarifying something, let us know. Right? We want this to
Right.
be valuable to everybody if we're doing this.
Right. Let
Yeah.
us know how we can exceed your expectations.
There you go. All right,
All
man.
right.
Well,
See you
I'm
next
already
week.
going to change when I'm taking my Tribulus, so I'm looking to see how that changes for me.
We're
And I might be giving a lot more people Tongkat Ali too after this. So
nice. All right.
cool.
We're learning all the
There it
time.
is. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you next week.